I'd like to call to order the regular school committee meeting, February 27, 2018. This meeting is being recorded by the Peabody School Committee's recording secretary, Leanna Harris. The matters listed below are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. I'd like to call to order the meeting, and if we could stand for a moment of silence. So we have anyone for the pledge? The student advisor? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to introduce the principal of Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, who will introduce our student guests this evening to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Eric Buckley. Erica, if you would introduce.
Three ladies from the high school, Rebecca Crone, who's a sophomore, Audrey Gabriel, a junior, and Emily Simon, who's also a junior. Our senior representatives are actually stuffing baskets for the senior dinner on Saturday night.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And are they going to give a report as well?
Yeah. They can.
Ladies, want to join us?
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank
Who
you.
would like to start?
I'll start. Okay, so coming up this weekend, our senior class is having their class auction, and it is on Saturday, March 3rd. It is from 6 to 8 and is held at the Peabody to Region Life Center. And the money earned from this event will go to senior events like the banquet and their prom. Their prom will be held May 24th at the State House in the State Room in Boston. The deck of students who qualified for states will be going to states March 8th to March 10th to compete, and they'll present on Friday and attend the awards ceremony Saturday morning. Student Council made over 100 Valentines to send to Boston Children's Hospital for each child there during the holiday. On March 14th, the annual dodgeball tournament will take place in the gym of Peabody High, and the following night, the faculty versus students basketball game will be taking place in the gym as well. And passing it over to Audrey.
All right. Hi, everyone. So, is this on? I'm a junior class officer, and we've been working really hard on junior prom, which is fast approaching. It's on March 9th. And so we've been having meetings for prom committee and helping committee and just getting the word out. In addition to that, juniors have been working with guidance, doing junior guidance seminars, and they're starting to introduce topics like which colleges we'll be going to, where we're thinking about looking at, what majors we're looking at, and so that's very exciting. Lately, the Performing Arts Department has been very busy with fundraisers for upcoming trips. On March 11th, the mattress sale that the Performing Arts Department did is being held again at Peabody High. We just recently had our Chipotle fundraiser last night, which was a complete hit. Today was actually the drama department did their home shows during second and fourth period, which they performed Water by the Spoonful, which is what they'll be competing at March 10th on Drama Fest. So in addition to that, recently, in light of recent events, we had meetings held at the school to talk about the Parkland shooting, and they're very informative meetings to talk about, student safety and how we feel in classes and what recommendations we have or any thoughts we have on the situation. I know in some of our English classes we've been writing letters to victims or to representatives to talk about what we feel as students could be the next step to action. And we think all of the people who've supported us, because we are planning a walkout on March 14th in solidarity with the victims, and that's been something that's inspired a lot of student interest in taking the lead on something and not just, talking about it, but taking action. And so that's been really important to us. And other than that, second semester,
There have been important tests coming up, such as CAS, and for sophomores especially PSATs, which will be held on Wednesday, March 7th. Regarding sports, the spring signups will be held throughout the week, and some have already happened. The boys basketball team is going to a tournament, as well as the girls hockey team, and certain boys press members will be going to nationals soon. Speaking of second semester, it's almost halfway through, so progress reports will be updated by Tuesday night. And the career speakers have already been through, or are they ongoing?
They're ongoing.
Mr. Quiz has been very good about getting people in to talk to any grade level members of like what they feel like doing, and that's been really helpful to some students who are looking into different departments.
Mhm.
That's all we have.
Well, thank you so much for those reports. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Ms. Dunn.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I know that we had asked that you help participate in a discussion we're going to be having tonight about school start times. So I think we'll be asking to have that taken out of order in the agenda so that we could ask the students if they have any input in that. If we can.
The school safety took the place of school start times.
Oh, that's
So
okay.
I haven't had a chance to meet with the students on that. I met with the students on school safety first.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm
and
sure
Audrey,
that.
Other than the walkout that you're planning, yeah. Other than that.
That was one thing I wanted to tell you. The way that you worded this was so nice, and I was really happy to hear that you're writing those letters. That's very, very
Yeah.
good. But when you said you're going to do the walkout in solidarity, we're very proud of you.
Thank
And
you so
I'm
much.
glad that this is going to be able to be a chance for all of you to have a say in something so meaningful to students across the country. So thank you for coming tonight, and we will pick your brain in a couple minutes.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Those are great reports. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to go to approval of minutes for February 13th.
Motion to approve regular school committee meeting minutes of February 13th, 2018.
Anything on the minutes? Ms. Dunn, do you have any?
On the minutes? Nope, I'm okay.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Next is approval of bills. Warrant A.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant A, number 3736, dated February 27th, 2018, in the amount of $59,785.93, subject to audit.
Second.
Any roll call vote?
Yes.
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 I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant B, number 3738, dated February 27th, in the amount of $662,030.39, subject to audit.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'd like to move to continued business. Ms. Dunn, the Higgins project?
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next meeting will be, excuse me, I'm sorry, March 15th, 3:45 at the City Hall in the downstairs conference room. That's open to the public. It will be our regular monthly meeting, and we'll just receive some updates on the ongoing work to finish out the project, and then upcoming work that will take place on the grounds, things that will be coming. Spring is on the way, and we'll be doing some work outside very soon, and I don't want to jinx it, so that's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Next is school start times.
So, if I may, through the chair, one of the things that I have been planning to do is to meet with a cross-section of students. As a matter of fact, similar to the cross-section of students I met with the other day about school safety, on the issue of school start times. And I do want to repeat that we are at the very, very, very beginning of discussing possible changes to school start times. So I thought that I think Ms. Dunn would like to get some indication from the young ladies here, although they haven't had time to prepare. And we know that one of you is a sophomore and two of you are juniors. This would probably not affect any of you because it really takes 2 to 3 years to, well, at least 2, to get a community ready for a change of school start times. But there's a great deal of research that now tells us that student sleep patterns are impacted negatively from getting up so early at the adolescent age that you're at. That your biological clock tells you to go to bed later and get up later. By us starting high school at 7 o'clock, 7:15, we're asking you to do something, the research tells us, we're asking you to do something that your body is not programmed to do at your age. There are many discussions that need to take place about school start times, and one of those discussions has to focus on student reaction. The question would be something like, what if we were to start high school a half an hour later or an hour later? How would that impact your lives? It's hard for us to convince you that this is good for you when you might have a job after school or that you may have to go home and babysit. There are people that plan religious classes in the afternoon around the times that the high school gets out. And of course, sports and extracurricular activities. But there are schools throughout the country that have done it. And as a matter of fact, there's an entire league, the Middlesex League in Massachusetts, which is right next door to us, that will be doing it next year. So the question is really the beginning of trying to pick your brains as kids as to how this would impact your lives. And we have to determine after we speak with the community, with parents, with religious leaders, with employers, and teachers, and especially you kids. On balance, is this something worth pursuing? And that will take quite some time. So this is really the beginning of the discussion. So off the top of your head, if we were to start school, we start at 7:15, is that right? If we were to start school at 7:45 or 8 o'clock, meaning that you would be pushed back to 2:30 or 2:45 getting out of school, how would that impact your lives as you are right now? So are you suggesting the superintendent should call a delay every day?
I'd just like to add on to the productivity Audrey's talking about. As well as that, I feel like the atmosphere is almost different as well. Like students, I've noticed come in looking a little bit happier almost, and like more ready and like excited. You know, like they got a lot happy. Yeah, but it's early. You know, you're like trying to wipe your eyes on the bus, trying to get ready to go and learn. And I just feel like the delays, like just for later start, I give more for like the time to actually get ready and like I'll be awake for school and like I just feel like the mood changes a little bit.
I agree with what my classmates have said already. The 30 minutes would definitely help, and the atmosphere was generally is definitely better. Yeah, I think everything that I feel is
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't even think about the atmosphere being better because they had more sleep. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you even notice like on the bus ride to school in the morning, no one talks. You're just by yourself. You're just basically sleeping on the way. Yeah, and quiet. I don't think anyone talks on my bus, but on the delay, everyone was like smiling. Like I'm just like I was shocked. Everyone was like seemed like they were excited. So I noticed that. It's a big change. It's a shame we'll probably miss it, but for future students, I think that it really helps with that.
Well, you'll be important to the discussion because what you will be here for is the beginning of the discussion. We'll be conducting some surveys for students and teachers and the community as well, and having a broader discussion with you guys. So thank you so much. I'm done, and I'll open it up to the school committee.
Ms. Dunn?
Thank you. Thank you. It really was interesting to hear what you had to say, and I know you really didn't have a chance to prepare for this or anything, so I'm really glad to hear your input. Have you heard any talk among your classmates? Are people aware that we're looking at this yet? Oh. Very good. Good. I have another question. As members of the advisory board, student advisory board, do you receive our monthly agenda, the school committee agenda? Okay. I'm going to ask. We'll get your emails. It gets emailed to us in time for our Tuesday meeting. I'm going to ask that the 5 members of the student advisory board be provided with our agenda for every meeting, and then you'll see we have some really interesting things that are coming to us. Like tonight, we have this report. It's huge, but it's very interesting, and it might be something that if you wanted to look at it, that you could, or if you had a classmate that wanted to see it, because once we have that, for tonight's meeting, you're able to read that. And it can be just sent right out on an email for you. And you'll have to check through. But we'll even get the articles that we were presented in the last couple of meetings, just so you know what the science actually tells us. And it's very different, but it's really compelling. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Ms. Dunn. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah,
Mr. Hockman?
Just quickly, thank you. You mentioned that there are some evenings that you stay at the high school until 8 o'clock participating in your extracurricular activities. And we all know on the school board that you're in bed by 8:30. So would you have any objection or any concerns about if the start time was pushed back 45 minutes, that your departure from school pushed back to 8:45 on some nights?
The funny thing is, regardless, I feel up late or finish homework, I don't have extracurriculars. But by the time I get into bed, it's like 10, 11 o'clock. I still feel wide awake.
Yeah.
That's the consensus.
That-
That's what we had learned about too, like statistically. But I feel like I shouldn't be getting this done because it's so late.
so far, that's what the data that's been presented to us is showing, is that biologically, you just go to bed later because of the way teenagers are developing, and that you want to sleep later in the morning. So it just seems, I'm glad to hear that you're corroborating what the data from Ivory Towers is where we're getting it from, is telling us. Because it's important for me at least, to understand, how any potential change like this, which is fairly dramatic, would impact the student body. So thank you for your input. I expect this conversation to continue, and I'm glad that you guys are young enough to participate in it over the course of time that we're going to need to take to decide what it is that this school district wants to do.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Thank you.
Before you go away, may I?
Yeah.
Audrey, because you mentioned the revolution, I'm going to speak to that. I was going to speak to it later, but I think it's appropriate for me to speak to it now. You've heard me say this before, and I'm speaking to the greater community. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. Of that, I have no doubt. We are so because we have the right to free assembly, and we have the right to free speech, and we have the right to have our voices heard on a whole variety of different subjects. There are things we need to do better. I grew up and lived through the 60s and lived through 3 assassinations of beloved leaders, the Vietnam War and Civil Rights Movement, and a whole bunch of other things. Today, we have the opportunity to support our kids and to say they're important in the discussion of what democracy really is. By supporting our students' ability to walk out of school on the National Walkout Day, to voice their concerns about gun control, and in solidarity with the 17 that were lost in Parkland, we're saying to them that we respect their viewpoints. We challenge them to be thoughtful. We want them to be involved in our representative democracy, and they are our representatives, and they will be our leaders 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. They will take over our local government. They will take over our local city councils. They will be mayors and town managers. There will be parents and neighbors and people who participate in all of the things that makes a community in this great country. For us to tamp down or dampen their enthusiasm to get involved in a national issue like this would be wrong. Therefore, as superintendent, I have told these students, and I have met with them a couple of days ago with the mayor, that I fully support their effort. There will be no disciplinary action for students who walk out of school, as long as it's done within certain guidelines. And we've talked about those guidelines. We want them to go to a safe place, and we've chosen the football field. We want them to have an opportunity to speak and choose their leaders who are going to speak to their fellow students, and we will provide the PA system for that. We need parent agreement through a note that it's okay for them to leave the building for that period of time and participate in this event. We need it to be done with dignity. Lord knows we need dignified debate in this country today. And we need to make certain that those students who choose not to participate, for whatever reason, or who hold different beliefs from the majority on this particular day, be respected and allowed to voice their opinions as well. Under those conditions, these students will be fully supported on March 14th. As a matter of fact, I will be marching with them. So I want this community to know that I trust our students, and they are nothing more than what you have produced for us. They are certainly their own people. They prove every day that they are trustworthy, that they are leaders in their own right, and they do the right thing. They've been taught that way, and they are that way, and we trust them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Levine. On to continued business, the backpack initiative. Mr. Hockman, do you have any?
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Just to give an update on the backpack or the No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody program, we, through the generosity of people who have donated backpacks, people who have donated money, people who have donated food, people who have donated labor in terms of filling backpacks, delivering backpacks to schools, picking up backpacks from schools, staff distributing backpacks to students and retrieving backpacks from students, to a whole host of community leaders who have provided resources for this program, to our own Mr. Stanton, who's been kind enough up until this point to bookkeep for us, if you will. The backpack program has provided 120 students with food for every weekend since the third weekend in October. We've had the fortune of providing at least double, if not triple, the amount of food over both winter recess and February break that we just had. We had so much food in backpacks over February break that we were concerned that some of the younger students wouldn't be able to carry them, and we actually asked principals in 2 of the schools to inform the parents of these students to provide some assistance in carrying the backpacks. We will expand the backpack program to all 8 elementary schools on March 9th. That will allow for 251 backpacks to be filled with food and to go home to 251 students. Those students have been identified by principals, by teachers, by guidance counselors, by school adjustment counselors, staff members within the school. Ms. Mertag has been an invaluable resource in determining who is in need of food on the weekends. We're in the process now of finding a new location to store backpacks and to fill backpacks because we're simply outgrowing the space that we have. The Peabody Clergy Council has been working with us in terms of finding a location, and I have a meeting with them next week, hopefully to find a more permanent location. We still are soliciting for backpacks. We still are soliciting for donations. If anybody out there wishes to make a donation, please make, if they're backpacks, you can drop them off at my house at 52 Ellsworth Road, or you can drop them off at Evans Flowers at 49 Warren Street. If you wish to make a financial contribution, you can make checks payable to No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody, and you can mail it to either my house, which is 52 Ellsworth Road, or to Evans Flowers at 49 Warren Street. And I want to thank everybody out there who's provided support. Ms. Carpenter actually came up with a wonderful idea about a week or 2 ago of having the school committee fill backpacks. I figured we'd wait until we expanded the program to 251 so we can really roll up our sleeves as a committee and spend a Thursday afternoon doing that. So far, we've had a tremendous amount of community volunteers who have filled backpacks. We do it on Thursday afternoons, and including the Mertag family and a whole host of other people. So I can't thank the community enough for supporting this program.
Mr. Hockman, thank you for that report. It's just a wonderful initiative that you're involved with, and really the community as a whole. Does anybody have anything to say regarding backpack initiative? No? I'm going to take things out of order. I'm going to skip public participation for now, and maybe we can go to the superintendent's report.
Yeah,
Dr.
sure.
Levine?
Superintendent's report is very brief. Before I get into what's on the agenda, Mr. Chair, I would ask you, as a school committee, to accept our apologies for a late submittal, but it really couldn't be helped because Peabody's boy track team has been invited to participate in the New Balance Indoor National Championships to be held in Manhattan, New York. We just got this notification. Since the event will be held on Friday, March 9th, we can't wait until the next school committee meeting. So I would ask you to approve the boys track team to participate in the New Balance Indoor National Championships in Manhattan, New York, from Friday, March 9th, to be completed on Sunday, March 11th.
Move to follow the recommendation of the superintendent.
Second.
Yeah, yeah. All in favor?
You need a roll call?
What's that? Roll call. Roll call vote.
Mr. Amico? Yes. Mrs. Castleton?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Abstain.
Mr. Inoda?
Yes.
Mrs. Day?
Yes.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Chair, I have an updated and corrected report from Box people, and I just want to pass this out so that you can take a look at it.
Motion to receive. Actually, I think, Dr. Levine, we had one in our package. Is it newer than this one?
This takes the place of that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We received a donation of $500 from the ExxonMobil Education Alliance to the South School, and Mr. Higgins has already sent a thank you letter. I would ask that you accept that donation.
Motion to accept with gratitude and thank Mr. Higgins for his prompt reply to them.
Second.
Okay, you had a motion and a second. I think all in favor,
Roll call.
right?
All in favor?
All in favor.
All in favor?
We have had a donation of a conference table to the Welch School from the Peabody Fire Department. I would ask you to accept on behalf of the Welch School the conference table.
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
And in your packet, you have the monthly accountable unit report. And I did want to just end by saying that on the same issue, I wish that you all could have been at the high school when we had our discussion with the 30 or so students. We met with the student council. We met with the elected student officers and the student advisory council. There were about 30 kids in that room, and they were about as thoughtful can be in the discussion about school safety and the recommendations that they made, and that was with no preparation, and the discussion about Parkland. We just need to be very proud of the kids that we have throughout this school system. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Levine, for those reports. Written communications, I believe we don't have any. At this point, I think we probably should do public
Yeah,
participation.
I think so.
Would anybody in the public like to speak?
Anybody that would like to speak can come and speak now.
Name and address, please. Name? Okay.
What if the school department wanted to increase the safety at the schools?
So-
Are we going to participate in the ALIS program that the state recommended?
Dr. Levine?
So, there are some things that I can tell you in specificity, and there are some things that I can't because it's safety. But please know that over the last week since Parkland, the mayor has convened a number of safety committee meetings. I have convened a number of safety committee meetings, and we have met together as well. And that includes the police chief, the fire chief, all the department heads that would be involved in safety discussions. Members of the school committee have been updated or have participated. And there are a number of initiatives underway. Some have just begun, and I really think the mayor should talk about that. And that's why we were trying to hold public participation, because I know the mayor would like to have a chance to talk to the community tonight about some of the safety issues. I can only tell you that the schools have been reviewed. We met with the principals. The only issue on the table was safety. That was a couple of days ago. Was that yesterday? Yesterday. We have reviewed all of our procedures regarding entrance, exit, school facility, doors, windows, shades, so many of the intricate details of what happens in a school in order to get kids into and out of school safely. We have, I believe, upgraded already safety plans. There are certain, I'm not sure what I can tell you publicly, but please know that a lot of effort, energy, and hours have gone into just this week. Also financial resources. The mayor is providing financial resources to the schools, and I really think that he needs to be the one to talk about that. So I know I'm talking around these issues. Safety is one of the things that you can talk about in executive session because of the confidentiality of some of the things that you do regarding safety. I don't want to take away any of the mayor's thunder, but please know, and please the community should know, that we're working on this almost round the clock, and we have already implemented some of the ideas that have come forward. Some of them came from kids in that discussion. And we are, I believe, fully securing as best we can and upgrading the security of every building in the district. And yes, we will participate in ALICE training. That was on the table. There has already been some. The community probably doesn't know this, but there has already been some ALICE training. And if you don't know what ALICE is, it's an active shooter response. You put people in crisis situations when there is no crisis and see how they respond to it. It's pretty intense. My son and my daughter, working in 2 different school systems, have both been through it, and they say it's a pretty intense training, and it should be. And
Alice program just isn't for the school. These kids are going to the mall and movies by themselves and use that training in everyday life.
Yeah, very good point. So we will be participating in that, and we're going to try to get a full scope of training in before the school year is out. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
John.
Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, and if we can assure you that we, as a community school board with the police chief, the fire chief, emergency response people, we met on February 15th. We met the day after Parkland in an emergency meeting that was called, and the mayor, I think, reached out to all of us because he was the one that organized the meeting, and we had like 3 hours notice, and we were all there. Everybody on the school committee was there. I think every person within city government that touches school safety or touches emergency response was there. We understand that this is the priority, that we need to ensure that not only are students safe within our buildings, but our staff members are safe, our administrators are safe. We're looking at things that, this is my 9th year on the school board, we're looking at things now that I've never discussed before on this school board. We're looking at programs that are occurring all over the country and trying to figure out what's the best way to address the situation for Peabody and for everyone that occupies our school buildings.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yeah.
if I may, I would just like folks to know our normal procedure for public participation is that we are not allowed to address your questions. We are not allowed to have a back and forth with people, and it's in our policy, and there are good reasons for that. And I would just like to say that a lot of your questions might be answered in a few minutes in our agenda because Mr. Olympio will be giving a report of our safety committee. Hopefully the mayor will make it here soon. He's attending to a meeting at City Hall right now, and he will give some more information. So some of the things that you're asking will be answered honestly in a couple of minutes.
And through the chair.
No,
you can't.
no.
You certainly-
I'm sorry, no.
No.
And I would like to know, you guys can simply, how are you controlling anything that's going on that might be around outside of the football field? How are you going to protect our children while they're at a football game, a baseball game, a soccer game? We've got to think of outside the school too. It's not just inside the school. How are we protecting them out there?
through the chair, and again, I know that we're not supposed to have dialogue, but I can answer that question in pretty specific terms. There are police at every outdoor event, and at this particular event that the kids are organizing for the walkout, the reason that I want it on the football field is because it's secure, and we will have significant police presence at that event.
I know what you're saying is secure, but you know, Parkland is supposed to be secure too. Commonwealth is supposed to be secure. Sandy Hook is supposed to be secure. Where I'm talking about, and these were inside. I'm talking about outside where all your assemblies are going on. Really, police, and I see police officers going when they're at the football games, and I see them walking and this and that. But you know, a lot of times when they're watching the game too. They're getting excited watching the game too. They're not watching, hey, there's somebody up there, or there's someone over there in the bushes or something. That's all I'm asking. What would be our security during these times when everyone is like happy and having a good time and not really paying attention to what's going on? I'm just asking.
We can't deploy the Army. We
I
have
know.
we have to go about our business. We have to go about our business of daily life, and be more aware, with more training, more sensitivity. As I told the kids the other day, they are our best army of partners because they're out throughout the building. If anybody's going to see something that's unusual or out of place, they will. We have to make sure that our for example, I gave the kids my cell phone number because they wanted an instant communication to someone if they saw something that needed to be addressed. So it's you go through a series and number of processes of trying to upgrade and be aware. Will we ever?
Another thing is there too, but then are we going, if they're going to tell, they see something, they tell something, is somebody actually going to listen to them?
Well, I hope so.
I mean, this is the time where it was proven that sometimes people don't listen to them, and I want my child to be listened to.
So we need to learn from that era, and you take all that information and you get it out there as best you can, and tell kids that we trust you and you need to trust us, and then if information comes to us, we need to act on it. You want to come up? Hey, Bob.
Jeff Smith, 23 Glen Drive. I appreciate what you said about not being able to respond to a lot of things, and we want to get some items here. There's a lot of security protocols we can discuss, and I respect that. I guess the one thing I just wanted to note was that this is a hot button topic right now, but this is something that needs to be ongoing and needs to be long-term goals as well, and continual training and professional development for teachers. I think sometimes the academics kind of get pushed forward, and we need to make sure that we have certain assemblies on certain things, but I would just say that, this is not something that's kind of new, but it's obviously fresh in everybody's mind because it just happened. But I just hope that there's long-term goals as well, not just in the short term, what we're going to do till the end of this year, but what we're going to do going forward in a broader sense as far as, school security across the district, and across the Commonwealth, obviously, not just here. That's all.
If I could, Jeff is a personal friend of mine. He has a background educator, coach, and Jeff, we spoke the other night briefly, and I'd love to have you involved in future discussions. Some of your ideas and your background, I think, would help us. So, very well said. It is one of those, like every time there's, sadly to say, one of these incidents, you do learn things as a community, and every city and town should be looking at and reviewing their procedures and protocols and kind of try to learn from what went bad. Like the lady said, we need to make sure if we do a hotline or some sort of anonymous tip line, there was something like that in Parkland and they didn't respond to the calls. We need to make sure that if we go that route, which I think we should, then we need to make sure that all the students are listened to and those tips are acted upon. So, but anyway, I just wanted to mention, I know we spoke, and I'd love to have your involvement and your thoughts on other things in the future as well, because I think you could help us.
you.
And
Thank you.
thank you all for being here. I'm sorry that I'm late. I was at a neighborhood meeting, a large neighborhood meeting at City Hall, and just ran over just as we wrapped up. So I apologize I wasn't here at the beginning of the meeting.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just bring you up to date, we are, through public participation, we've already done the superintendent's report. We're about to go into written communications. The issue of safety has come up on a couple of occasions tonight. I did not respond in any specificity about the question that was asked about what it is that we're doing to upgrade our security, except to say that we have met multiple times, that you have convened multiple meetings with many different people, including the school department, that I have convened a number of meetings with my people, and that we are upgrading our security, but I did not give any specificity, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, and I could talk a little bit about that if there's no objections. Certainly me personally, I'm the father of 4. 3 of my kids go to school here. One of them's a student here at the middle school. I have 2 in elementary school, 5th and 3rd grade. So, it hits you as a father, as many of you are parents, all of you, family members here in the city of Peabody. So it hits you there, but also as an elected official representative for the community, you want to make sure you're doing the right things for the city and right things for our children, making sure it's a safe environment for our kids, our faculty, our administrators, everybody. And really, this has been the forefront. The last couple weeks, because of the tragedy, and again, as I mentioned earlier, you do learn a little something from each incident. And I think when this happens, you need to take the opportunity to review with law enforcement officials, with school administration, with teachers, with students, and hear from them, parents, and to learn about things that, changes we should be making, things we need to learn from. But Jeff is correct, and this can't be something that we spend a couple weeks on, make a few changes, and then we're done. This is something that we have to continue to work on. So I think we've kind of articulated or come up with a short-term plan and a long-term plan moving forward. And as the superintendent said, we've met with law enforcement officials, multiple chiefs, district attorney's office I've personally spoken with, our faculty, our principals, parents, and our students. And yesterday, I don't know if you mentioned it, yesterday we had a meeting with the student council at the high school. It was about 50 students, and it was wonderful. And we wanted to hear what their concerns were, and we learned a lot from that. And one of them was the anonymous tip line, and they were really advocating for that, which was terrific. So right now, I think we have made some good investments over the years. We right now have a full-time police officer at the high school, as well as some additional 2 additional security guards. We have a full-time police officer here at the middle school, and then we have 1 full-time police officer that rotates among the elementary schools. We invested in a Cop Sync program, which is a direct notification system between teachers. They all have it on their cell phones. It's a direct line to the nearest officer on duty, the nearest patrol officer on duty to respond in case of an emergency. We have lockdown drills, and in fact, it was very interesting to meet with the students. They want more lockdown drills, and they want more crisis management drills, more of that. And there was a pretty deep discussion on that. So I think that's something we're going to be implementing as well. But we do have a crisis management plan at each of our schools that's worked on with our teachers. We have door security. We have cameras that have been recommended by law enforcement. And then a couple years ago, we opened up the school-based health center at the high school, which was for the purpose of helping those that need some services, mental health services, coping skills, things of that nature. Because to me, it's all tied together. Mental health, gun control, school safety, they're all intertwined. And I know we've been able to help a number of kids with some of their needs. But that's some things we've done. We need to do more. Things that we've been working on in the short term are the locks and cameras and reviewing all of our security measures that we take currently. But there's things we need to do in the long term. Adding more dedicated school police officers. Putting in some additional locks. Right now we have Columbine locks in our schools where each teacher is allowed to lock the door from the inside. Those were all implemented over the last couple of years that we put those in place. But there's more that needs to be done. Police is coming up with a plan, and again, I know it's sensitive, and for obvious reasons we can't say everything that we're doing. But to me, police presence more police presence is needed. You're going to see more police officers at the schools. You're going to see more patrol at the schools. And then you're also going to see some changes made to our camera systems, our front entrances, and also some kind of security for our teachers in entering the building in terms of different systems that are going to be in place for them to enter the building in different areas. Because to me, it's all about securing the entry points to our schools. I feel good about some of the measures we've taken, but there's more to be done. So short term, there's things going on, but long term, there's going to be a lot of things happening. I will be able to update you a little bit more on specifics as we move forward, but this is really just, to me, it's the most important issue that we're dealing with. And if we can't keep our kids safe in schools, then we're not doing our job. So to me, that's the number one priority. And I'll be able to, I think, roll out some of more of the measures that are coming. But I've been meeting with police to come up with with plans for more police in our schools. I guess that's probably the best I can say at this point. All right, let me see if there's anything else. Okay. Mr. Amico?
Just wanted to thank Chief Hasman and Chief Griffin also from keeping police and keeping fire for being at those meetings and really getting us involved and being involved and doing what's best for our kids. I think they've shown that they really want to protect our kids and protect our teachers and protect our schools. So just wanted to make sure we acknowledge that as well.
Thank you. And just to add to that, a couple of additional comments. We will be investing in additional technology, surveillance equipment, some front entrance technology that will assist us. And we are also working on ALICE training, and that's moving forward as well. So that's in the works. Again, I can't be too specific as to what we're doing with ALICE training, but that is very much part of our short-term and long-term plan. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said, we're not allowed to address you when it's public participation, but now we can answer some of your questions. Couple of things that were brought up during public participation, and I know other people have been asking these questions. Right now, because of the recent school shootings, every school is examining their school security and safety. And a lot of people think that we're just doing it in response to that. And that's not true. We are reviewing things because of those school shootings and because of those considerations. But this is an ongoing process. We didn't just start looking at our security because of what happened in Florida. I've been a very involved parent in the schools since 1994. And I've been on the school committee since 2003. And I can tell you I have watched and participated at all different levels in discussions and decisions about school security. The city of Peabody has always done its best to protect everyone in the schools, the children, the staff, and the parents who come to visit or volunteer. Those protections have improved because every time something happens, you have a stand down, just like they do in the Navy or the Army or the Marines. You have a stand down where your system examines everything, and that's what's going on right now. But there are a lot of things that have been in place for many years that have been improved over the years because with each incident, people learn from those. I have 4 children who went all through this school district. I have dealt with the issue of school security when the biggest consideration was the fear of a group of terrorists attacking the school. There are all different types of incidents which impact the school. And one of the best things that we do in our school isn't just related to the actual safety of the building. It's also looking out for the health and security of the children. And that's important too. The mayor just spoke about the mental health clinic at the high school. That's important. But our teachers also meet consistently to talk about how are we going to talk to the kids about their worries. They deal with it on a different level. It's not just bricks and mortar. They're dealing with children, and they're dealing with themselves, with other adults. There's always two different levels being looked at consistently throughout any discussion about school safety. The school committee has a safety subcommittee. And right now, I would really like to publicly thank Mrs. Carpenter, because she brought in a lot of different programs for us to look at that have actually been implemented in this district through her work when she was the chair of that safety committee. Now, Mr. Olympio is the chair of that safety committee, and we have had 2 specific meetings. Yes, they're in response to the recent actions, but this is an ongoing thing. Those meetings take place throughout the year with the school committee. But with the school district, the staff, our administrators, they meet constantly with our public safety officials, with the police and fire. Police and fire bring us new news also. It's a partnership. They're involved in this very, very deeply. And we learn from them. They bring new programs. Right now, everyone wants the ALICE program. A few years ago, state of the art was lockdowns. Everybody in the country learns new things because, unfortunately, there are a million different ways to create havoc. But I want to make sure you understand this isn't new. This isn't just happening out of the blue. This has been consistently going on, at least in my life, since 1994. And it gets better. Every single time this district concentrates on improving safety. Is it 100%? No. No one can ever give you that guarantee. But we do the very, very best we can, and I'm actually very impressed with what I've seen so far going on with this incident. It's always going to be a fright. It's always going to be a fear. But we do what we can. We look into all of the newest systems. We look into all kinds of equipment. We're constantly trying to balance the upgrade and make sure that we're doing everything we can, but there is no guarantee. And one of the other questions was about outdoor. That is always part of the discussion. Outdoor activities, outdoor assemblies. It isn't limited to safety in the building. It's always discussed for every aspect of where our students and staff are going to be when they are a part of this school district. And I really do want you to understand that. We can't get very specific, but the police and the fire work very closely with us on a lot of things. You may not even realize that they're there, but they're watching out. You may see somebody that you know that's a police officer and think they're watching the game. Let me tell you something. I've seen them watch a game and in 2 seconds take care of a problem that happened behind them. I have utmost faith in them. They're looking at the game, but they're on duty and they're working hard. And they participate in a lot of activities in this district too. We have police at a lot of our activities that you can see, and there are police that you may not even know are there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really glad that you've explained a lot of what's going on, and I just wanted to add to that from a perspective that's probably different than anybody here ever really thought about.
Thank you. And I did want to say, thank you for your comments, but it is an unsettling time. And I certainly think that parents should be questioning and asking questions of us and what we're doing.
Mhm.
So I'm
It
glad
helps
that we had
us.
some parents come today. I've talked to numerous parents over, and the traumatic incident that happened deserves questioning of each city and
does.
town, what their procedures are and policies and protocols. And these are times that we have to look at ourselves, look within, and determine what's working, what are things we need to improve, what lessons we learned from what happened in Parkland. But I think we constantly should be challenging ourselves, and parents should be questioning us and should
They
be
should.
wondering what's going on. And, that's why I think we need to share a lot of information, but obviously there are some things we have to withhold a little bit for safety reasons. But, I'm glad that, we're being questioned, and every district should be. So,
No, I'm glad you came to the meeting tonight. I really am.
Go ahead.
You guys call lockdown 3 times. You don't have it coded or anything. You have kids on the football field and kids in the school. So at that split second, if you call lockdown, the kids from the school are running back into the school when they could be safely out on the football field and running to safety if the intruder is inside the school. Why aren't they coded to
I'm not sure if that's, I would have to defer to the police department as to the procedures on that. I'll have to ask that question and get answers. I'm not sure if that's exactly what the procedure is for each school. We'll have to get those answers. Is that at the high school you're talking about?
Even at the elementary school, they call lockdown 3 times. They don't specify why they're locking down the school. So if kids are already out of the school safely, they're running back into the school because they're calling lockdown.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Unless, like a hospital, you call code A, code B.
Yeah, I mean, I do know we have procedures at each school. There's crisis management plans, there's different drills we do. I can't get into specifics as to where kids are supposed to go, where kids are going, obviously, for obvious reasons. But that's what we're doing now. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing. We met yesterday with the crisis management team and our emergency directors and our police officers. And a couple of the schools' plans are being reviewed, and that's when they're going to be doing some training starting as early as next week at some of the schools. So I think you'll see some of those things worked out, and I think you will see more lockdown drills, and I think you'll see different types of drills. Because it was interesting, as I mentioned earlier, the students were asking for that. And some of them were concerned that they were going to be scared in certain drills, but then some of the students were very open in that they want to be scared. They want to be challenged, and they want to have a situation where they're nervous, because that'll help with having to, if they ever have to react to something like that. So that's exactly what we're working on right now. I can't go into specific schools, but that's front and center for us right now. Yeah, Mr. Miko?
Thank you for the chair of the committee. Dr. Levine, you may remember this, you might remember this. About 2 years ago, there was an incident downtown where an inmate left the courthouse, he escaped. There might have been a situation where at some of the elementary schools, kids could have been outside and they called them back in. So sometimes lockdown, sometimes security procedures are not only because of what happens in and around the school area, but it could be a half a mile away where we have to get our students back into the building, keep them safe. And so that would be a situation where if they were outside, we'd have to bring them in. If they weren't in imminent danger there on property, but a half mile down the road or a mile down the road, they could have been a bad guy running around. So
No.
in those cases, we do have to defer, the police and the superintendent in that regard.
No, thank you, Mr. Miko. I remember that very well. And I'm sorry, what's your name? Ashley makes a good point, too. There's different types of, different codes or different types of scenarios. And I think that's, each individual school has their crisis management plans. But, I think that's an important distinction. But I do remember that. So that's a situation where, of course, we need to get the kids into the building. All right. Thank you, Ashley. Thanks. Any, sorry. I know, Mrs. Carpenter, you had a comment?
Thank you. No, I just want to say I appreciate everyone coming tonight. I really do. I've been listening over the past 10 years, but very much the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of talk on social media. There's a lot of text messaging, emails, the press. We're getting a lot of information. As has been mentioned before, this board met immediately after the Parkland incident, and it's tough. It's tough on a lot of us. We all do have kids. I have kids at the high school level here in Peabody, through the middle school, in elementary. We all picture exactly everything that's happening, everything that you're going through, the reasons that you're here, the reasons that people are reaching out to us. And I have to tell you that upon review of our safety protocols, we are ahead of so many other districts. We really are. There are things, you know, and as a parent, if somebody said to me, well, there are things I just can't tell you, but you have to trust me. No, I'll tell you as soon as we can. I'll tell you so you feel better. Everything that we can possibly tell you. In the cop sync that we mentioned, that we've had in place for a few years, that is one of the things that makes me feel so good as a parent, that teacher or that person can identify and help the police immediately, quicker than almost any other district around here, find out where that shooter is and save lives. There are things that we have in place that are absolutely phenomenal, and there are a few things that we have in place that you don't know about, and they are pretty good too. But I want to say that this board has been excellent. We have met with the fire, the police, and when we go into budget and we struggle over educational materials and teachers in front of students, I just have to say, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you so much, because there's a lot of money that's about to come up that we're not struggling for. He has put complete faith in me, in this board, that he is going to take care of everything that he said that he's going to take care of. The police presence, I think, is number one. There's no arguments in there. There's no sacrifices. That what has to be done is going to be done. I feel exactly the same way you all do. And I think we all do. We all have children. Mr. I noticed has plenty of family.
I do, yes.
No children yet. But this is such a hard time, and I just want you to know I understand and I feel for you, and I feel the same way as you do. We all do. And I don't think we will stop doing these meetings. We will continue, and we will take immediate action for anything that's wrong, and we will continue. And Mr. Olympio, as Mrs. Dunn said, is now the safety chair. It was grabbed away from me. No, I'm just kidding. But it's something that is taken very seriously, and I thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we left off at subcommittee reports?
Yes.
All right, let's go subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee, Mr. Hockman, anything to report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a meeting scheduled for March 12th at 5 p.m. here at the Higgins.
Thank you. Finance Subcommittee, Mrs. Carpenter?
Active negotiations with all unions at this time, all as well.
School Safety Subcommittee, I think I covered the report. But we want to schedule another meeting. Well, we'll organize that. Athletics and Wellness Subcommittee, Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
All right. I was about to say Mr. Rosignol. He is here.
No more. Welcome, Mr. Rosignol. How's the city council going?
Do you miss us?
You miss us, don't you? I am planning on scheduling an athletic and wellness subcommittee meeting. I recently reached out to Mr. Bua to get a complete review of all of our athletic teams, how many we have in regards to varsity and JV, our records, how we evaluate our coaches. I'm also interested in, and I didn't ask him for this, and Dr. Levine, I might ask you how many waivers we're currently using right now for middle school students, those type of things. So we're just going to try to get a complete review of our athletics department and see how we're standing in that regard. And then as soon as he gets me that information, I'll schedule a meeting. And I know Mr. Olympio had something on the wellness piece.
Yes. So I had a notification from the health center that a fellow alumni, class of 1989, Gary Gallman, he's a comedian and he's done pretty well for himself in the comedian circuit. He's going to be putting on a concert Thursday, April 26th at 7 o'clock at the Peabody High School auditorium. It's going to be 7 to 10, and it's going to benefit the student health center. And you can get your tickets at Eventbrite, go online, and be able to get tickets that way. So that was very kind of Mr. Gallman, proud 1989 fellow classmate.
And you probably don't know this, Mr. Mayor, but I'll be his musical introductory act.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Olympio.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
could
Dunn?
I direct a question through you to Mrs. Carpenter? I was wondering, when you're gathering all that data, could you also request a list for Mr. Bua of all of the booster organizations and what they charge families? That's an issue that, yes, the fees, because that's an issue a lot of people are asking about. If we could find that out, I think it would be helpful. Thank you.
Will do, Mrs. Dunn.
Okay. Quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Quality and Standards Subcommittee met this evening at 6 p.m., and what we reviewed were the policy on against alcohol and tobacco that we have been working on. We've adjusted some of the language regarding the juuling addition to that, and we will present that at the next meeting for first reading. We also began the review of our bylaws, and we have several areas in Section B that we're going to adjust just to update some language, and those two will be brought at the next meeting for a first reading.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. City Council, I'm sorry, Mr. Hockman on that topic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few months ago, we had some parents who came and participated in our meeting regarding transportation busing. And at that time, we were unwilling to adjust the transportation policy that exists. But I think we said that we were going to review the transportation policy in advance of the 2018-19 school year. So if I can ask through the chair to Ms. Dunn, if that's taken place yet. I know you're very busy and there's a lot going on in your subcommittee.
I'll be honest, I just assumed that we'd look at that in conjunction with our annual vote on the bus fees, the administration of the entire bus program, or transportation program. So whenever that comes up, that's when I thought we would look at that policy, because it's all related.
My memory was, Mr. Chairman, was that there were going to be surveys that were going to go out, that there were over 100 students that were believed to have wanted to participate in transportation but didn't meet the geographic distances that are in place in our policy, that we were going to look at geographic distances in other neighboring cities and towns for transportation. I think it's something that needs to start in committee, and I think Ms. Dunn's committee is the appropriate committee for it. So I'm going to make a motion that we review the transportation policy as it exists now in the Quality and Standards Subcommittee. So moved.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Olympio. Any comments or questions on the motion, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Just in that regard, if we're going to start investigating that as well, could we get a memo or some type of report from Eileen in transportation as to what type of figures or numbers she has, or her opinion and routes and those type of things, just to get a better understanding if this is really a road we can go down? Just something from Eileen.
I think we got trouble behind us, Mrs. Carpenter. So we have a motion. Any other comments or questions on the motion?
Just that I know that if, in order to properly look at it, normally, I'll be honest, the policy of the bus policy, I'm going to have to sit down with Mr. Stanton as well, because any decision on that, any change in the policy has a significant impact on our budget. So I will probably bring that forward, perhaps under the auspices of the Quality and Standards Subcommittee, but I think it's going to end up being a committee of the whole. That's how it's always been done in the past, with decisions on the distances. There's a lot of information that we can gather ahead of time, so everyone has all of those facts and figures in front of them. But I do think it's going to have to be something for the whole committee to decide.
Mr. Hockman, you?
No, I don't disagree with Ms. Dunn that the whole committee is going to decide this, but we decide it without the information year to year, and we've recently had some people who have told us that they don't like the policy. So I think it's incumbent upon us to study what how changes would impact the budget, because I don't know that we know that. I don't know that we know that it would impact the budget at all. It may, it very well may. It may impact the budget positively. I don't know, but that's the point of having subcommittees and investigating topics that are important to people in the city, and that's all I'm asking to do.
So the motion is now to put it into Quality and Standards. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Hockman.
Yes, I'd also like to talk about the policy about not addressing people in public participation. It's something that's been in place for as long as I know. It's something that, for as long as I know, and I don't want to put Mr. Rossignol on the spot, but we've had private conversations about this. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me, particularly for a conversation tonight. We have issues that come up that are important to parents, important to community members, to appear before us, and limited opportunity. And I know that the administration, the mayor, the superintendent, school committee members are always responsive to those people who participate in our meetings outside of the meeting. But that doesn't allow for the community that doesn't have the ability to get here to hear those responses or to understand those conversations. People who are at home in their living rooms and watching on TV and watching on YouTube for rebroadcasts of this meeting. And in particular, the conversation we had tonight, where it deals with school safety, and we're limited in what we can say. And I'm not suggesting that we violate open executive session or certain areas where we're not able to directly respond to people who participate. But I just don't see the purpose of the policy, and I could be very wrong. I'm not suggesting I'm right, but I would like to review the policy. And again, I think the appropriate place to review it is in our policy subcommittee, which is quality and standards. So I'd like to make a motion to review the policy that prevents us from talking or responding to people who participate in the public participation portion of our meeting. So moved.
Good. Well, do I have a second on the motion, Mr. Miko? I want to thank you, Mr. Hockman, because I think that is a good suggestion to review that. I feel like sometimes it's difficult, particularly in light of what's recently happened, if we do have parents come to a meeting and then we technically not allowed to speak on it. I know at times, and I'm usually the guilty party is that I want to speak on it, and I try to answer the questions as best I can, at least provide some information. But technically, we're not supposed to do that, and I think it is something we need to review to maybe see if we can have a little bit more ability to talk and discuss issues of concern with parents and teachers that may come here. So I'd be supportive of that review as well. Any other comments, Mrs. Dunn?
I've been on the committee when we have done both, and I can share those experiences with you folks when we do review the policy.
Great.
There actually is a very good reason for it. Also, that when we have an issue, on like school safety, we can always have a public hearing, which would allow us to hear from people and then to be able to address them as well. When you have an issue that's a very, very important issue to people, instead of trying to insert it into just a routine meeting, a public hearing or a public meeting sometimes can be better. It's better. It's designed much better so that you can have that back and forth with people, and so that you can have many of the materials that you would need. But I'd be happy to go into more detail later on. When we
Well,
go
that
through
makes
the
sense. So yeah,
policy.
let's review that. I think that's worth a discussion. All in favor of putting that issue forward to the committee as well? Okay. Anything to report, Mrs. Dunn, on city council and advisory boards?
No.
Okay.
That's it.
Building and grounds, Mr. Miko? Okay, thank you, Mr. Miko. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 6th, at Higgins at 7 p.m. That time. Also, too, just wanted to bring up something that I've been thinking about. And for a little bit, it's been weighing on me. I think that as the committee as a whole going forward, big picture, I think we really need, especially coming to budget season, I think we really need to think about expanding our special education programs and classes within the district. Because this is my third year dealing with the budget, and that special education number is a wild card. Every year, the number expands, and the cost of sending kids out of district, it just becomes astronomical. And I think if big picture, if we have the ability to keep more kids inside the district, maybe even have kids from other districts come in and, so to speak, pay, tuition into Peabody, I think that's one way that we can manage, future special education costs, because the costs are going to keep rising. And every single year, we're going to be scratching our head with a tough, budget decisions. And I think if we, just try to research the infrastructure that's needed, what type of staff that we need and teachers. I think at the end of the day, the cost of us setting up these additional programs and classes we'll see the benefit right away, especially if we have the ability to bring kids from other districts in to pay us, and what we would save sending our kids out of the district. And I just think big picture, I think those are the things that we're going to have to really zero in on to help with the budget process going forward.
Great.
It's been on my mind. I just like the other committee members to kind of think about that, and that's kind of where my head's at.
Well, thank you, Mr. Olympia. That's great. Absolutely. I think that's something we need to take up.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Dunn?
could I apologize? I did have a parent advisory board report for you. Before we move out of the subcommittees.
Sure, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, make sure
you're all set,
everybody
Mr.
else has
Olympia.
a chance to
Thank you.
speak.
On that.
On that topic, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. You're absolutely right. I want to mention to you, I remember, I'm not sure how many years ago, it was when we implemented the hearing program. Was it at the preschool, Mrs. Dunn? No, in the McCarthy. And it was for that exact reason.
Right.
And it took a while to get going because you hired the teacher, but you weren't guaranteed the student, or you only had one or two. So it was a gamble for a little while, and some of them are a gamble, but they're absolutely worth it. You're so right. It's kind of one of the only ways we can control that cost, because that is a cost that you just never know. But you're right, and I just want to thank you for bringing that forward again.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Dunn, Parent Advisory Board report?
Thank you, and again, I apologize. The Parent Advisory Board met last night here at the Higgins, and we had two main topics on our agenda. The first was snow removal. The members spoke of the different issues existing at some of their schools, and I'm going to prepare a memo for you, Dr. Levine and Ms. Murtagh, and if you could help with passing that along to the DPW, just so that they know what parents are experiencing. Some have been long-standing issues, but some were new, and depending upon the snow removal at the time of school, that type of thing. So I'll break that all down by school. Well, I know we were afraid to even talk about it. And it spoke of not only the transportation of students, but also for the walkers. That was a big concern, big consideration of students walking to school, to and from school. And then the second part of the agenda was, again, it was about school safety. And one of the things that impressed me was that the issues that the parents brought forward, there were specific, school-specific questions and concerns and appreciation on different things. It went along very much with what we've heard from students and what we're hearing from the public and what we were discussing in our safety meetings. So again, that was very interesting to hear what the parents had to say and what they were bringing forward as well. And they had some very good suggestions, which, again, we'll put them together. Some are things that you've heard already, and it was interesting to hear their perspective on that as well. So thank you. The next meeting for the Parent Advisory Board will be Monday, March 26th, here at the Higgins at 7.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. On new business, we have an issue brought forward by Mrs. Dunn, before school exercise. Did you want to speak on that?
Actually, what I presented was a very interesting article in the New York Times. It's in our packet, and it was about the box program and how highly regarded that was. And I just thought it was something interesting for everyone to see that a program that we have here is really changing a lot of lives, and they're getting some data that shows how helpful it is. that proves that children having exercise in the morning helps them for the rest of the day. And then, of course, we have that additional information that Dr. Levine provided with us for all of the sessions that Box is operating in the schools. So it was really just something for your information, but I thought it was great to read about it and learn some more about it, and made me very proud that we have it here. And I know it's run by volunteers, and they're very, very dedicated, and I think we owe them a debt of appreciation for what they're doing with the kids, because they're making a very good difference.
That's great. And I know some years back, we only had it in a couple schools, but now we do have it in every elementary school, which is great. I've heard wonderful things about that program as well. Terrific. Any other issues before we adjourn? Mrs. Dunn, happy birthday.
Oh, thank
to
you.
Motion to adjourn? Thank you.